Salve discipuli. Today is our second lesson for chapter 12. And this chapter is actually a shorter chapter, so it's actually going to be our last teaching lesson on chapter 12. And then you'll have a short quiz to complete over the genitive case, which we are going to finish talking about today. Last time we did our vocabulary words, which we're not going to go over again, but make sure that you're doing your list and turning that in. And then we are going to jump right back into talking about the genitive case. So if you remember talking about the genitive case at the beginning of the year, it's one of our noun cases. It's the second one. And it normally shows possession, and we would translate the genitive case with the word of to show that possession or sense of belonging or ownership. And so now we are going to add 3 more uses of the genitive case other than possession, just like we did with the ablative case. So if you remember, the ablative case is the object of the preposition, but then we added some more uses like means or instrument, manner, and separation. And those are just some more uses of the ablative case that you might see. The normal job of it is the object of the preposition, but you might see these side jobs too. This is the same thing with the genitive case. The normal use of the genitive is possession. That's how you're normally going to see it in your translations. But you might see some of these other uses as well, and we would call those just like side jobs, or if you remember us talking about them like they were hobbies. So the first 2 we went over in the first lesson. We're going to briefly go over them again just to refresh your memory. The first one obviously is possession, which hopefully you know by now really well because that's the normal use of the genitive case. And it expresses ownership or belonging. You can still use the word of to translate it. Just like the example in the book, arma militis is the arms of the soldier, which means that the arms or the weapons belong to the soldier. That shows possession. The second use that we talked about is called genitive of origin. And the definition of that is that it expresses the place from which a person or a group originates. So this is just telling you basically where someone comes from, like their hometown. And the example that they gave was Cloelia Romae. Remember, Cloelia is a name. And Romae is in the genitive case, which means that we would need to translate it of Rome. So together that would be Cloelia of Rome. But that doesn't show possession, that shows origin. So we would label this as a genitive of origin because it's telling us where Cloelia originates from. The third use of the genitive case is one we didn't talk about last time, and that is genitive of material. And material expresses the material from which something is made or created. So think of this as like any sort of physical makeup of something. The example that they give in the book is gladius feri, which means gladius is sword, and then feri is in the genitive case. So we would translate that of iron. So a sword of iron. That doesn't show possession and it doesn't show origin, it shows material. So this is the third use. It's showing what the sword is made out of. Just like I might say the shirt of cotton. That would be saying that the shirt is made out of cotton. So whatever physical material is making up something, that's what we would call material. And then the last use of the genitive case is called partitive. Or you could just call it part of the whole. And this expresses the whole or group of which a part is mentioned. So the example they give in the book is kind of funny because it's not like a normal Roman phrase, but the example is pars placentai. And pars is part or a piece, and then placentai is in the genitive case, and it actually means cake. So we would say of cake since it's genitive. And so the whole phrase is a piece of cake. And this is called partitive because it's telling us about a part of a whole, right? A piece of cake or a slice of cake is a part of a bigger thing, the whole cake. And so you can do this with anything. You can do this with inanimate objects like cakes, or you might see this as like a part of a group. So you might see something like some of the Romans. that would actually be called partitive because we're talking about a smaller group of a bigger group of Romans. So that would be partitive, or part of the whole. So you can see this in a variety of different ways. This one might be the hardest to pinpoint, but just think that anytime you can think of it as a smaller piece of a bigger group or object, that's what partitive is. Again, all 4 of these uses can be translated with of. So you're not translating these phrases any differently than you normally would. We're just labeling them a little differently because not all of them fit into the possession category. So for example, the very last one, partitive, a piece of cake. We wouldn't say that the piece was owning the cake. It's not possession, so we have to call it something different. We're going to call it partitive. Same thing with material. We would say a sword of iron. The sword isn't owning the iron, or vice versa. It's just showing what it's made up of. So we have to label it something different than possession. Okay, so genitive case, always use of. That's the good rule of thumb. But now we're just labeling them a little differently. Your assignment for today is actually to find some genitive phrases in some sentences, and then you're going to tell me which type they are. Are they possession, origin, material, or partitive? There's only 4 options. And I'm going to go ahead and go over the example with you just to make sure that you're on the right track. So if you're looking at the assignment 2, chapter 12 assignment 2, it's attached to this lesson in a document. So what you're going to do is you're going to find the genitive phrase that appears in each English sentence. They're all in English. You don't have to do Latin here. And then you're going to tell me which type of genitive that is of these new 4. So the example that I've given you is an English sentence, and it says, "The soldiers of the town fought bravely." The soldiers of the town fought bravely. And so I've identified the genitive phrase as of the town. So what you're looking for in these sentences is an of phrase. So of, and then whatever ends the phrase. So of the town is our genitive phrase. And then I need to label it as one of our constructions. So I need to ask myself, is this possession, origin, material, or partitive? And if you're having trouble figuring out which one it is, I like to just use process of elimination. So just start with the first one and see if it works. So possession, the soldiers of the town. Does the town own the soldiers? Not really. It's not really showing possession or ownership. So we're not going to say it's possession. Is it material? Are the soldiers made up of town? No, not really. That doesn't make sense. Is it a part of a group of a whole? Possibly. But I think the best one that fits here is origin. It's telling us where are the soldiers from. They're from the town. And so you could say it's origin. A lot of these have multiple possibilities. So some of them I may not count you wrong if you don't put the one that I had in mind. Like soldiers of the town, I might count partitive because they're talking about a part of a group of a whole, the town. And so you could say it's partitive. So the idea is just to pick the one that makes the most sense to you, and tell me which construction it is. And that's it for today's assignment. Hopefully it won't take you long. It's all in English. Again, you don't have to do any translating. And if you have any questions about it or need any help, feel free always to let me know. And that's it for today. Well, later, discipuli.